Welcome to another episode of the Potential Success Show. My name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, also best-selling author, and every single day I help others unlock potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on the show, we have another amazing guest. On this show, we interview celebrities, entrepreneurs, business CEOs, athletes, and artists to find out their path to success, how they're able to overcome challenges and adversity, and of course, their keys to success. And today's guest is somebody who's been helping a lot of people become successful in real estate. I've had the opportunity of seeing him face to face at different conferences, seeing him online speaking at conferences and events. And every time he speaks, he adds value. He makes people listen because people want to learn from him because he has a great wealth of knowledge when it comes to real estate investing and real estate tips. He's been a person who's, I think, you bought your first property at the age of 22. And from there, over the next 6 years, at that point, he was house hacking, jumping in and out of properties, 12 properties, and really getting so much lessons learned from those 12 properties that he eventually became a real estate licensed and also contracting license. And then from there, does real estate investing and does buy, fix, and flips, buy, fix, and holds. And then he's been able to now pass on some of that knowledge to his clients, coaching them on the process, the labor, the cost estimates, and all that kind of stuff, which is very, very important when it comes to real estate investing. Now, he also believes truly that your network is your net worth is your network. So therefore, he started his podcast, which is Ernest Goes to Network, which is absolutely amazing title. So please welcome real estate expert, investor, coach, podcast host, Mr. Ernest Smith.
Thanks, Fong. I appreciate that. I don't know if I feel like I need to do the rest of the interview now after that intro, but thank
Oh
you.
no,
Great to be
now
here.
you gotta give it all.
I gotta give it all now. I'm good with that. How you
Well,
doing
thanks.
today?
I've been doing very well. Yourself?
Oh, fantastic. Just, can't be
Is,
any better. I'm glad to
is
be
the
here.
house in the background one of your masterpieces?
It was one of the flips that we did actually. Yeah.
So before we jump into your history, your past, your Cole's Notes version of your origin story, share with us the story of that house in the background.
So this house that we had, it was a two-story, as you can see, but really had a lot of character to it. But we just made some changes to it more on the uh, top point side and over in the staircase area with the windows and stuff the way it is. It was just kind of one that it was in a neighborhood that really was in that gentrification side, so it changed a lot. And this is just one that we were able to go into. I did that actually this with a client, and so this ended up being their kind of forever home. But the so we had a lot of design that went into that aspect of it, and then back and forth with them, and then ultimately just it turned out to be a really great product. So yeah.
So what was it like before? Was it ground up or full round turn?
No, I mean for the most part, a lot of it was. And this particular thing, and it started out with the basic structure of it, and tore some of it down, added some on. So it was kind of adding the square footage. It had kind of the part second story, and then we just changed some of the roof design more so for where the staircase was for them to be able to utilize that upper section and stuff like that more so. So
Mm.
yeah, always, they're like, hey, sometimes the big ideas are always the better up here than it is on paper. But this one, with some renovations or not renovation, but changes to the designs, we made it happen. So
Mm. Now, I know you're a person who plans everything out and has all that stuff thought out and whatnot, but I'm sure you can't plan for everything. So was there anything with this particular project that one did not go according to plan, and two, how did you overcome it?
this one actually, we went back and forth a few times with the architect to get some of the changes and stuff done that the city was kind of requiring. Obviously there would been some changes and some change orders by the client and stuff as well for some of the things that they didn't see, and then we maybe not had the conversation about. Um, Process wise, I mean, we always usually run into something with some of the trades, them saying, hey, we'll get it done in 5 days or 7 days, and it takes, 12 days or 15 days. And that tends to start throwing off the schedule. And then, you're on this timeline to, in this particular case with the client, you're on a timeline with the client, and they're looking at the watch like, hey, we got time running around. We're carrying multiple mortgages, and so it's times of the essence with a lot of these client projects and stuff with it. So that's why I think I gravitated a lot more towards doing my own kind of thing. So that way I could just speed of execution, just get it done and not have someone else they, to answer to in some regards. But
Mhm. Do you do you put in like a factor of a few days or like for timeline
oh,
wise when it comes to
yeah,
contracting?
certainly, certainly. It really just depends on the scope of work that is going on, but it's also part of how I end up handling the contractors at the time. Also, is like I being around the construction side for as long as I have, doing all the fix and flips, and then living in these things and doing some of these in the early years, and really just coming from the background of design, like I kind of had a sense of what time should be, and then obviously doing Gantt charts and stuff with them all. So when you know that, you allow for certain things that have kind of a predecessor going after it, to allow a couple extra days because you don't know about weather, you don't know about some of these anomalies. And so you have to kind of plan with those accordingly. And so if someone's telling you, hey, we can get it done in 5 days, and I'm like, is that a confident 5 days? Or are you really talking about like 7 days? And then I'm just going to bill you out for 9 days and then have the person or crew that's coming behind you come in at like the ninth or 10th day, just
Mhm.
because, it gives them a little bit of grace period. Now, if they go over that, they know up front that they're getting dinged because now every day that they go past what I had on the schedule is costing time, money, name it. So they're starting to get dinged now for it.
Mhm. Wow,
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's rewind back the clock. How did you become who you are today? I mean, not everybody jumps into real estate right away. I know you had a background in drafting and design and architecture. So how
Mhm.
did you go from something that, you sit at your computer drawing things up to somebody who's out there hands-on?
Um, it's really always about like the labor of love with it. So I came up with the designs. I did all those, and the big part is always having the thought of I wanted to design my own house, right? And this is forever house. And so once I kind of acquired that and started doing some of the designs, then it kind of segued into, hey, I'm gonna buy my first house, right? I'm gonna live in it for a little while. And then there's always that short-term gains and capital, long-term gains. And it's like, well, if you live in it for a year or 2 years, you can make all your money out free. So back in, this is late, 1990s, early 2000s. And so you really looked at the tax side of things. I was kind of the old school of, parents raise you up, got to go work for a big corporation, go, make the W-2 job. And so even though I did that over the years, working, doing sales and doing different things, I always still ended up doing the houses, kind of in between as the hobby, if you will. And so it was this kind of a growth process. But there, a lot of times it's like you only know what you know, and it's like you have to be able to nowadays. We have YouTube and we have all these different resources at our fingertips to really learn what it took us physically to learn and time to learn. You can learn it so much faster. It's amazing.
So you eventually found out that your side hobby became your more profitable than what you were actually doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was when you did sales or you do any kind of a W-2 job, you're kind of there for that 9 to 5 and in the grind. And some people, that's all they want to do, and others they're doing the side hustles and eventually, my side hustles turned into the full-time thing. But ultimately where I kind of got into the being licensed general contractor or being a licensed realtor, it really is because it was the tools, right? Like I had times where I needed to rely on those type of people, and I felt like I was falling short with them. Like I would replace them with another one or someone else that was eager and wanted to learn and grow, and I came back to the same stuff. Like I felt like I was always chasing them to just do their job, right? And so I was like, all right, you're human, I'm human, you can do it, I can do it. And so I went to a conference once, and there I saw a guy and he always had like Amaze Yourself on the board. And And he's like, how do you implement that in your life? And it's like, you step out every week and you challenge yourself to do something different that you normally wouldn't do. So you're to amaze yourself. And once you start doing that for several weeks, then it becomes much easier for you to make changes and want to, improve life and, do some different processes. And so I kind of took that running, and that's when I went out and got my licenses. And yes, it made things easier, but then there's just another hat you're wearing too. So
So I hear a lot of people who get into real estate investing who goes, okay, I need to get my license. I've heard people go, well, there's pros and cons with having a realtor license and investing at the same time. Sometimes there's a conflict of interest. Sometimes it's hard to buy the property. What are some of the pros and cons of being a licensed realtor and with the purpose of investing?
one, you're just you're held to a higher standard, right? Because you've got the background check, you've done the education process of it, you're essentially in the face of the public. So you really have to have a higher level of ethics that go along with it. Not to say that, if you're unlicensed, you all that's out the window, but you're really just by law now, you're held to different standards. Like you can get in trouble with, the governing body and stuff with the realtor side. Now, there, along with that, there's a larger cost. You have the MLS fees, you have the additional education fees that you have to go through, and your time that you have to go through with the classes, and I mean, there's just a lot of different things that go with that. So if you're not really utilizing the real estate license, then you kind of question, is it really worth it? Um, if you're trying just to go, excuse me, if you're just trying to get into using the MLS for the CMAs to do all your cost market analysis, then you kind of look at it as like, is that really worth it? Yes, I can list my own properties, but in the same side, do I want the headache and the burden? Because there's times I had the license and I still would go out and give it to another realtor, um, just because I don't want to be bothered with it.
Have you found it easier for you to lock deals down then? Like you're going out there, you're finding properties, people want to sell. You might go, oh, wait, before we list it, let me look at it. I might be able to give you an offer myself, kind of thing.
Certainly. And we do some of that right now. And, so what I find like a little bit of the differential is that when we're calling and talking to the sellers, virtually, I'll have the virtual assistants, they'll make the phone call. So yeah, when you get those phone calls, some of them might be us, but really it's kind of them just doing the cold calling and then us getting kind of the warm leads and hot leads to go from there. But really, when we're kind of talking about it, we're introducing it as, hey, we are in the areas. We offer three different services. We offer a general contracting service if you're looking just to get work done on your properties. We offer the realtor services if you're looking to sell or buy, any additional properties. Or we also have a group of investors that we work with that buy properties as is. So does any of those fit your situation? And so it softens it up a little bit, if you will, because now it's not just one thing. Hey, are you looking to sell your house? Are you in foreclosure? Are I'm not attacking them. We're not attacking them. It's just having just a general, excuse me, a general conversation on and just the process, on they have a property and really with your if you're doing as a realtor, you need deals, you need properties to be able to buy and sell, right, for your clients. If you're doing, any kind of fix and flips, you need deals, because that's where you get your income at. And same thing with investing, so there's always a lack of deals and a lack of money. And that was always the two major factors really across all three segments that you run into.
Mm. So like for people who are able to get in touch with you and they have this property in their hands, they have a whole lot more options because it's
Yeah,
not just selling it, right? You might come up with another strategy. Oh, we could bring in another investor or another money partner or buy, fix, and flip it and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually pretty cool to be able to speak with you on their property because there's just so many more options that you can come up with.
correct.
So that's absolutely amazing. Now, when you first bought your first property, was that from a mindset of buy, fix, and flipping it after a while, or was it almost like, okay, this is it kind of thing, or always with a mindset of investing?
No, it was always a mindset with the investing. I mean, the at the time it was keep it for 6 months, keep it for a year, get the short-term gains, maybe keep it for 2 years if there's a lot of equity, or if I'm in the location that the property values keep going up, then I might sit on it for 2 years and then take the cash out. Because at the time, and it really hasn't changed much, but as a single person at the time, you could go up to $250,000 in profit off of that after you've done it for 2 years and be able to walk away capital gains free. Well, that's huge, right? So I mean, in 2 years time, he's like goes by like this sometimes when you're living in a house, and you just take your time, finish it up, do it. And yeah, I was swinging the hammers and I was painting the walls and I was doing a lot of the physical labor to do it. Excuse me. Although there are times that you bring in the certain trades when it comes to electrical, mechanical, or plumbing, and you just handle kind of those things. And for me, it was also part of the learning curve. I'd rather learn as I'm going to a property that I'm going to sell, and then the ones that I would end up keeping myself, like I've improved my skill sets over the years. So I just know I'm going to be a better product when I have my own particular property. And so that was kind of the mindset, is that I'm improving my skills as this is going on. And I look at some of the houses that we go into now with clients that other flippers have done, and you just look at the fit and finish, and even as a general contractor side, you know, um, you just look at the fit and finish, and I just shake my head. I'm just like, man, the skill levels, the qualities, levels gone down. Like there's just people just don't take pride in the work that they do. They're in there to try to make a quick buck, and not really even the quick dollars, just trying to make a living. And they just go in there just kind of like, yeah, that's good enough. It's like,
So when people look for general contractors, and even sometimes when you need to look for contractors to come like help out or whatnot, do you go through a, I don't know, a screening process, a test, some sort of way for you to kind of vouch that, okay, this person is a good quality person? And for people out there who's looking for somebody, what can they do to make sure that they're hiring the right people?
certainly. Um, a lot of times it's third party referral. So like I'm just reaching out to my network of people and just say, hey, who do you have that you worked with in the past that you liked? And you'll get those referrals, and they're great, but you're still going to vet them, right? You still have to vet them, because there's times that I've taken the word of, like someone that I really respect, and they've just turned out not so good at all, right? And then there's times that I've also have referred, people out. But usually now when I do that, I'm giving them 3 to 5 names, because at the end of the day, I don't want them coming back to me and be like, oh, hey, I used Joe or Frank or whoever, and they're horrible. And it's like, because that's a reflection on me, right? Because I'm the one that referred them. So I just say, hey, here's a couple of people that I've used. Here's some that I haven't used. Like, vet them, do your thing with them. But so at the end of the day, you just have to kind of look at their work. Of course, everybody's got their cell phone, they got all tons of pictures, and that's great. But I mean, like physically go get an address, go knock on the door to the person that lives there, just say, hey, I know these people have worked on your property. Can I look at it? And it may be a little awkward, but you want to do it more so with the people that are, maybe that's like the newer properties they just worked on, right? So maybe there's not anybody living in there yet or something, but for the most part, a lot of people will give you the ability to go check it out. And if they don't, then that's kind of a red flag, right? If they don't want to brag about their stuff, but I want to see it, because in pictures it looks good, but I'm not seeing necessarily all the details.
Right. Sometimes it's behind the walls or underneath the carpets or beneath the hardwood and all kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, there's a saying in real estate investing where you walk in, the place is a mess, smells like cat urine, all that kind of stuff. And that's the smell of money.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've been doing this long enough to have some of your favorite go-to stories of shock and awe, where you go in and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do here, kind of thing. What are some of your favorite stories to share?
I mean, we've been into, I've had some houses that were maybe like 600 something square feet to like 4 or 5,000 square feet. And of course, the bigger ones, you're like, just because it's so much massive in square footage, you're just like, man, this is just a daunting task. But some of them really aren't that bad. There might be like a couple rooms that are bad, but it's not the whole entire house. when you're dealing with like a 600, 700 square foot house, and like your floors are like so sagged and warped, and because they're just the way that they built in the past, you walking across, you feel like you're on a springboard, um, you kind of know why, and you kind of know, at least at this point, like I know what I need to do to help fix it. It's not, it's not going to necessarily make 100% remedy to it, but we do enough to where like it stiffens up the floors. We take out the maybe the wood that's rotted or termite damage or something that's done to it. And really that's kind of the stuff that you don't see, like the termite damage and stuff that really causes a lot of issues. And it's when you're doing the rehab, it's about pulling back the onion layers back so far to where you get to the point of moving forward, right? So you might have a process of 50 steps, and I got to go all the way back to step number 15, and then I got to go through 35 steps to get it back complete again. Or I may only need to go back 5 steps to go, it just depends on where and what you're buying. But obviously, the more issues that there are, then you're pulling that onion layer back further, but then there's also more cost, right? So you have to get a better deal on that when buying it. And when you understand that, then it's like you have a better tool of negotiating that particular deal.
Mhm. I, this came in my mind as you were explaining that, when you said the floor bounces as you walk through by it. So realtors are great for framing things in a positive light. So small place, cozy. So when you're walking down a bouncing floor, how do you frame that?
The bouncy floor. you know,
It's fun.
you,
It's
you don't you don't have to worry about taking your kids outside playing the trampoline.
perfect. Um, I know you mentioned before you put on a lot of hats from being a general contractor to investor. You're a speaker now. You're a podcast host. How do you manage all that stuff? How do you know when to have a certain type of communication repertoire when you're a contractor versus a speaker versus a investor? What do you do differently when it comes to different types of people you're working with?
That's a great question because I really kind of contribute a lot of it to the sales background. And when I say that, it's because in sales, you almost have to be a good chameleon, if you will. Like you're going to change colors, and you got to. That's really kind of like how you deal with a certain individual. So when I did sales, I worked in different restaurants and restaurant sales. So I had Greek clients, I had Chinese clients, I had Japanese clients, I had, Italian. And if I could have like spoke all their languages, it would have made things so much better. But when you walk into maybe like a Chinese restaurant, you're dealing with that particular owner, like they want to horse trade with you, right? Like you just have to understand who it is that you're dealing with, and that's really kind of like an international business side of things. And so I think, dealing with a homeowner, you have to understand kind of first, kind of the issue that's underlying it. Are they in pre-foreclosure? Are they in foreclosure? Like how far in the process? Are they fine? They're just, distressed where they're just not putting, money into the property. Is it a divorce? Or, when you understand a little bit of the background of what's happening, it gives you some idea ideology of what direction to ask questions and kind of go with it. And really, that's kind of this take on the sales. So as the GC, I'm looking at it as, hey, this client or this investor is coming to me to figure out what they can do, and they're looking at me as the professional, right? So I know what it takes to go into the structure, how to maybe move a load-bearing wall, and maybe look at it as what the cost is, how much, how long, what kind of material, what kind of materials. Um, and then you get into the realtor side where they're looking at it like this pretty house behind me, right? Like, hey, I want you to make this thing as nice looking as possible because I want an easy job to go and sell this property. And so I want you to go out and do some landscaping and go freshen up some paint, do some of the other things that really is how the people see it, perceive it. And that talks another part of the story. It's like but as the GC, I also want to do those things but unless my client is telling me or I'm doing it myself, is really what you're, depending on the phase that you're doing it, if you're doing it as a flip for your own properties. And then on the investor side, you're looking at the whole big picture, right? You're looking at it from the bird's eye view, and then you're trying to bring in the professional realtors, the professional designers, the professional GCs, and you're really relying on those key people to help you get your product done in the manner in order for you as an investor be able to be profitable at the end of it. And so, but when you kind of wear all three, I guess I can equate it to like if you know a couple different languages, obviously being able to shift speaking English to speaking Spanish or speaking, French, like your mindset just has to change based off of kind of the scenario that you're in. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that because you're talking about from your sales background, you're able to connect with different types of people from different backgrounds to different cultures, which helps you along the way to now where you're working with different hats, being able to communicate well with different groups of people. Now, lots of people out there are saying, well, how do I develop that skill set? For you, was that natural? Was that something you just kind of learned as you were working with all these people, or was it something that you put your like thought process in? Okay, I'm gonna have to look at this stuff. I'm gonna have to read this stuff. I'm gonna have to be more versatile and learn more about that sport, so that you could build that rapport. Was that conscious, or was that something that you just kind of developed?
I would say I have a gift of gab. I like to talk, and sometimes, but in sales, they always talk about you have two ears and one mouth, and so you need to ask a question and then listen to the response, and then just over time, dealing with a different type of clients, you really can to understand like if there's someone that's maybe Indian background or if they're what nationality they are because of the difference of how they interact within their countries. They're it's no different than us, the way that we get raised, they get raised, right? So it's really just kind of having experienced that in my side, that is, I feel like, why I can relate in a lot of ways, because really at the end of the day we're all human, we all relate the same. It's just we have a different background of how we learned or how we barter or how we communicate and then make deals, and you know and even down to where we handshake. Like when I remember walking into a couple Chinese restaurants and stuff like that, and I'm handing my business card to them with two hands, and then it's like the way you shake, and you're just kind of being respectful in the sense of just the process, because that's what they do. And the same thing is like if I go to like a Mexican restaurant or something, like just a little bit of just saying, hey, I'm speaking a little bit of Spanish, like you can. It's just they appreciate it, and it's just knowing that little bit that you're just making yourself a little different than your counterparts that are out there. Is huge,
Mhm.
you know.
I'm gonna put you on the spot for a moment.
Okay.
You have a gift, okay, and you wanna give that gift to a Chinese culture person,
Mhm.
and also give that gift to a West. Oh no, uh, a Chinese person gives you a gift, and a Western person gives you a gift. What do you do? Do you open or you don't?
Open it in front of them.
Yeah.
Um, I think oh geez, that's a good question. I don't know if I'm trying to think back to a time when I did that. Um, I think just out of generosity, like I accepted those, but no, I think most of the time I opened them in front of them in both
Okay.
scenarios, I think, if I remember.
Okay.
Um, and really just because it's like like maybe like say for instance, like when I went to an Italian restaurant, they would give me pastries or some kind of the pound cake or something like that. Like I knew kind of what it was, but something like I didn't know, I would just do it kind of in front of them, and it's just kind of a hey, I appreciate it, but um, they sometimes they would just say no, just open it later. Okay, you know,
I think
but
I think if I'm correct, the general consensus is for Asian cultures, if you receive a gift, you don't open it in front of them, because then it gives you an opportunity to judge the price and the value of it. So
yeah,
then it becomes
There you go.
disrespectful. Whereas for our Western culture, if you don't open it in front of them, it's disrespectful because you're not excited to open it up.
Yeah. Which makes sense. Well, most of my Chinese ones, they always have their New Year's in a different, like usually in about like a couple weeks after our New Year's or month, maybe a month or so. And so most of the time, like my gifts I would get from them would be, here's the Chinese calendar, here's like some like the Chinese horoscope things, like it's kind of fun what they do because they're very prideful people. I mean, and really both of them are, but like I said, it's just, once you kind of understand a little bit of the basics of who they are and you just do business a little bit that way. And it's really just kind of getting to know the person that you're dealing with. And that's the same thing with any of these homeowners or sellers. It's like just get to know them, just ask them questions. It's not about, yeah, the house is the deal, the house is the opportunity, or the business that they've put blood, sweat, and tears into. If you're in the M&A space, I mean, there's it's really just about the person, and they wouldn't buy from me if they didn't like me. So I got to be able to get them to like me, right? More so than my competition, because at the end of the day, someone else is knocking on the door and like, hey, I can sell it to you cheaper. It's like, sure, someone can come in and buy the house less expensive or more expensive, but I got to be able to justify to them that my reason's the best reason out there, and I'm the best person who's going to get it to the finish line, and you're going to be able to walk away with what I said that you're going to, and you're committed, and so there's that comfortness that goes along with it, you know,
Well,
with the authority of it.
I think another thing that really adds to your ability to put on different hats and be relatable and build rapport is your ability to network. Not only is it relationship building, but it also allows you to really open up your network and either potential clients or potential partners or just being able to talk with different people gives you that ability to practice the knowledge and the information that you have to share and all that kind of stuff. So share with us, how come you are a person that's so easily relatable, so easily to build rapport? What is it about you that is so easy to get in touch? Because that's how we met. I think we were walking by and we're like, hey, let's chat. But then you just have this aura with you that makes you so welcoming.
Well, I appreciate it because I always felt like there's times that I feel like I'm very standoffish. Um, the I think that the big part is just the approachable side. Like I think once people get to know me and start having that communication with me, they're like, oh man, like you're easy to talk to. Like we could talk to about a lot of different things. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of that old saying is like, you're a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And so, yeah, wearing the different hats, the general contractor, the realtor, and being the investor is like I'm that chameleon across the real estate platform. And so I can really just navigate having conversations about any of those. Now, if you get me into talking about sports or football or something, I mean, I'm probably not the best. I can hang with it a little bit. I had some friends of mine that were very sports driven. And the only way I can really connect with them is I started playing fantasy football with them, so it's like, because I got to be able to learn and some players and yeah, and I've done actually, to my defense, I've actually done really well over the last several years playing that, but it's more so just to have the conversation and be like, oh, hey, and keeping up with what's happening, who got hurt and different things that I really probably didn't care much about, but there's a lot of people out there that do, and that's a connecting point. So it's like I got to do a little bit of homework with that, right? And really that's kind of the biggest part is like, like we met at a real estate one. So obviously the topic is real estate. I've been to other ones where we were at mergers and acquisitions. So we're talking about business, business side of things. So now the mentality of the people in the room are more business and merger driven, and they're talking about the EBITDA and and all these other things. Where real estate is they're talking about, hey, how do we buy better? How do we sell better? How do we improve our processes better? How do we do all these things for us to be able to make more money? Like what's the formulas that go into buying the property, and then DSCR, like there's all these different topics that you kind of throw out there. And so it's really just kind of understanding really what you're passionate about and doing, but then also being able to be open. Like everybody always talks about, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, don't talk about money. And it's like, why? Why not? I mean, I'm okay with getting into a heated conversation, knowing at the end of that we may not have agreements on who we like or dislike. But on the same side, I'm having that with you because it gets me to understand who you are and your angle of it. Doesn't make me dislike you or fault you more because you like one side or another. It just gives me the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? You're okay. You're human, just like I am. We get to make our decisions. And it's really just, being respectful of the individual and their thoughts and
Mhm.
not condoning them to, you got to be this way. And this is the only way you can be.
I guess the caveat with that is hopefully the other person has the same mindset as you, or else you're completely
Mostly
fine
like
with
if
it,
you
and
think,
the person's like all pissed off.
yeah, well, when you think about when you go into like the real estate, groups, the masterminds or, the M&A spaces, you would have to say like a good 90% of that room is very much, same mindset.
Yeah.
Whether you're left brain or right brain or, very analytical or not, yeah, it's really depends. But that's the fun part. Like when you go to these things, most of the speakers are calling out everybody in the room anyway. Hey, who in here's, you know, uh, likes the big pictures of all this stuff that's here behind me? And what's that? Oh, hey, that's me. And then you get the people and it's like, hey, do you know how much this window costs and how long it takes to do it? And how, oh yeah, 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 that's me. It's like, you see the room, but you understand why they're doing it, right? Because it's a sale process as well. They want to know who's the big picture buyers and they want to know who also is going to be the analytical people that or think through these things. So when you understand what's happening, then it just kind of gives you an ability to be able to look at it and be like, hey, I'm going to sort through this. I'm going to pull out the nuggets. I'm going to listen to those that I really resonate with, and I'm going to follow them. And then, of course, like you had mentioned, like we had met out in the hallway in one of those conventions, and it was just kind of like, yeah, again, it's like you're a clean cut guy, you're very well dressed, nice tie, nice suit, and you had hair and I didn't. I mean, I was drawn to it. So,
Oh, that's good. I thought it's like if I had hair, you're out with the picture.
no.
That's the caveat. Um, so when it comes to what's coming up for you, like what are you passionate about right now? What are you looking for? How do people get involved with what you're doing? What are you looking for?
Man, that's a great question. I love it. So right now I'm getting more into the coaching side. I'm getting into more of the mentoring and just really helping people to understand what really goes into kind of like these houses behind me, the fix and flips, and really how do you manage the process? How do you come up with the timelines and the costs and like how do you balance that budget starting from like the end concept working backwards? And because there's so many people that get into it, they're like, oh, hey, this is the HGTV version, and this is the glitz and glam, but they don't show you or tell you the backstory of like how it costs and how much they went over budget. And hey, this $150 toilet we just spent $7,000 on because it has a built-in bidet. And like, does that make sense in a $350,000 house? No. Maybe a $2 million house, a $7,000 toilet, yes. So it's just understanding the products and stuff that you're going into. So, and that's really kind of like everybody that I've known over the years. They're like, Ernie, you have so much up in your head, like you need us to give back. And I felt like the local meetings that we did and that I always attended and I always network at, like I'm usually the last one out of the room because I'm the one that's networking with everybody at the end. And I'm usually supposed to leave at 9 and it usually ends up being like 10:30, 11. And then it's really just because I enjoy talking to people and they a lot of times they just get stumped on like some things in the process. And they're just like, hey, how do you do this? How did you handle this contractor? How did you handle this situation or this client? Or, what did you do? And it really is just kind of having that just conversation back and forth. And a lot of it is just the school of hard knocks, in a lot of ways for me.
No, one of the other things you started is your podcast where you're talking about networking and building relationships and all that kind of stuff. How did that come about, and how do people get in touch with that?
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I appreciate it. And so so Ernest Goes to Networks podcast. You can find it on Spotify and Apple, and we're getting ready to drop it on Podbean. We're getting ready to do the convert it over to the YouTube and all that as well. But really right now it's kind of a new one. So again, kind of back in the beginning of our conversation where I was talking about like the AY, the Amaze Yourself, and so I was challenged, much like the room that you were in with JT Fox was really kind of like, hey, you need to be providing a podcast that gives you the ability to be able to network with some high individual people because they're looking at it as it's not so much, hey, what can I do for you, but it's adding the value back to them. And a lot of them, they don't need money, they don't need the connection, they don't need to do some of these things, but they like to tell their stories. And that's really kind of what we want to be able to portray and build in our network is like, look, they took this idea, this, business, and they scaled it and they did extremely well with it. Like one of the guys that I really drew me into JT's group originally was Fred, billionaire Fred. And and is talking about scaling. And it's like, man, if I could learn about scaling a business from a billionaire, and even if I fell short, I would still be doing okay. Like like that was my mindset. Is like, of course I'm going to do that one, right? And because I get to spend like a year time, several times a month, one-on-one conversations, all and just learning about the business acumen of a billionaire. And not only that, but it's really like the infrastructure of the business and the culture of the business and the what you do around your staff and the growth. And a lot of those things I maybe didn't know. And it's just, or you did know, but it's like you get to certain plateau points where it's like, hey, I'm going to do my first million. Once I do the first million, then like the second million's easier. And then the 10 million's the next plateau. And then like you have to really change your business model and then go, into the 50s and the hundreds. And so it's really having, you're always going to have mentors along the way. You're always going to have coaches along the way, and you're going to get to the point where you surpass your coaches and you need to go find other coaches, to get you to the next level. And so I'm like, why not go right to the billionaires? Why not go right to the top people and be able to learn? So I'm, in a lot of ways, I'm a very small fish in the big pond. And that's kind of really, again, amazing yourself is like putting yourself out there into these groups and really just taking the experiences, and that's giving back. So the podcast is just that, is really just being able to tap into that network, right?
Being the small fish in a big pond is actually pretty cool because then you get to learn and grow accordingly, right? So when it comes to speaking on stages, I know you do some speaking now. Let's imagine that we're going to put you on the big stage and you had to share one message. I know that you already gave a lot of great tips today, but what's that one message that you would like everybody to remember Ernest for?
My big takeaway on this is really about the AY. I mean, that was such an impactful moment for me, and it was so simple. And I really, unfortunately, I do it a disjustice because it's been so many years ago, and I don't remember the presenter's name because I saw him at a university. Um, but nonetheless, it was he literally had on the board A period Y period, and he left it there for like a good 10 minutes, and it was and you're obviously you're listening, but you're focused on what this AY was. And eventually he got to the point where like everybody's looking at this up here on the board, right? Yeah. And it's like, all right. So it stands for Amaze Yourself. And it's like, oh, okay, that's fantastic because everything that we were listening to up until that moment was about, stepping forward, doing something different, stepping out of your comfort zone, really just kind of diving into um not being stuck by the ceiling, not the glass ceiling, or, is the glass half empty, glass half full? It's like really just go out, give it your 110%, and just really just amaze yourself. And that was, so I guess for me, it was always the self challenge, is that because I felt like I was always kind of the solopreneur that I was okay with just stepping it up and adding another hat on or another tool into the tool belt. And because it's helping me in my journey, it was helping me in the challenge, and I was amazing myself. And but then now, as I'm getting into these, the bigger ponds, you realize you just can't do it as fast and as efficiently as you can with a team. So that's the biggest thing is you got to open up. You got to have a team. You got to put some really good people around you. You got to have mentors. You got to have coaches. And these are mentors are people that you follow and not necessarily pay. The coaches are the people that you pay because you want them not to be easy on you. You want them to be hard on you. You got to get them to push you out of your comfort zone to get you to be really the amaze yourself. And that's really my biggest thing is just you got to trust the process. You got to trust the people that you're putting yourself around, and you're going to find you got to replace coaches just the same way when you get to certain levels. So always amaze yourself.
Awesome. Great, great words to live by right there. I gotta ask. So you've been living this mentality since university days. Amaze yourself. I'm assuming you've amazed yourself many, many times throughout this entire time. What is your most memorable or most proud amaze yourself moment?
You know, I have several, I think, and obviously taking the general contractor's test, taking the realtor's test. I was never great at taking tests. And so the moment when you go and hit the enter button on the computer and it tells you whether you passed or failed, um, you get that big attaboy moment. So the GC one for me was I don't want to say super easy, but it's far easier because I think I already was in that mindset. The realtor one is definitely more of a challenge. You have to pass a class one in order to be able to go take the state one, and I failed it. And then I failed it again because you could take the test twice at the class, and I failed it. So then I had to go retake the class in order to be able to have the opportunity to do it again. And and realistically, when you look at the state, they have a psychological company that creates these tests intentionally because they want you. They got to be able to reduce and control the number of people that go. And so they perform these tests this way. And I could have quit, but I didn't. And it's about like now I'm challenging myself because now this is time and money, right? I'm devoting months of time to go retake a class, to go take this test that it gives me this license. So it's a matter of like you can't let some hurdles stop you. You got to keep persevering and keep pushing through it. And so I have a lot of things that are like that, and especially every house that you deal with. I mean, a lot of them test your patience for sure. But it's nice because you've taken something that someone built new years ago and whatnot. Um, it, Tons of families have lived in it, had memories in it. Some just didn't take care of it in the process in their time. We came in and we were able to redo it again and be able to put it back out there. So it's really kind of the same mindset as that, the house just needed me in its life in order to be able to get it to its next stage.
Mhm. Awesome stuff. I know you got lots of houses to buy and fix and flip. I know you got lots of people to help coach. But before I let you go, 5 quick questions. Give me the first thing that comes to mind. Strand on a desert island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, no consequence.
One food to eat the rest of my life. Hmm. I'm a big apple person. I love apples.
So healthy.
I mean, can't say, I'd want to that be the only one, but we'll go with apples on this one.
So healthy. I had somebody say broccoli. So broccoli, healthy,
Was
apples.
that might have been Lynn. Was that Lynn? No.
All right, you're in a car for a long time on a road trip. One song to listen to on repeat. Just one song.
Oh, you got to go with Willie Nelson on the road again. I mean, come on.
Great choice. Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, Ernie, would you love to do a biopic on you? Who would you cast to play you?"
Uh, Jason Statham.
Jason Statham shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, buddy, I can't do the accent, so I'm not gonna try. Hey, buddy, I got casted to play you. Let's hang out. Let's have some fun. What does that night look like to you?"
It would probably It'd probably involve me getting thrown over some kind of a bar table or something like that because I feel like he's got something like that in every one of his movies.
So it's like, picture this, throw me across the room.
Yeah,
Uh,
make sure you get this on video because I gotta go viral with it.
it's your money shot. Um, he's hungry, and you go, hey, buddy, Jason, let's come back to my place. I'll fix you something nice. What's that special dish that you prepare?
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be like a big, like Wagyu kind of porterhouse steak with some, potatoes and, salad and, kind of the works.
Nicely done. Last question. Give me a number from 1 to 4.
Let's go with two.
1, 2. So if you had to use a guitar as a metaphor for success, how is a guitar like success?
It starts out slow, learning string by string to get to the chords to play any songs that you want. So it's a process. You have to understand the process, know that there's time involved to get to the chords and to play them flawlessly. And then you can, after that, you can play any songs you want. You get to
Nicely
rate
done.
your ticket.
That's how guitar is like success. Any final words from you? What's the best way for people to contact you?
Best thing is like all the socials at Ernest Smith Official. And then when you go into the podcast, it's Ernest Goes to Network podcast again on Spotify and Apple. And just keep following us along the journey. And we'll be probably here over the next several months. We along with the podcast, we got the YouTube that's going to be coming in. We have we're getting into more of the coaching setup and getting the like the Zooms and meetups and all those things kind of happening. So get connected. I'd love to be able to help you out in the not the guitar, but the process of learning the chords on how to do your successful fix and flips and really help you to be as profitable as possible throughout that process.
Awesome stuff. So everybody, if you're looking into real estate investing, get in touch with Ernie. He knows what he's doing. Obviously, if you can get houses like the one behind him, that's a win-win right there. So thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Fong, I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. He's Ernie. My name is Fong. Until next time, today is the day to lock the peak potential. We'll see you later.